Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, November 6th meeting of Newcastle Planning Board. I'll be filling in for Robert this evening. And our first item, we have a quorum? And since we do have a quorum, do I have a motion to open the meeting?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's show that the meeting's been opened. And let's go to our first matter, which is a public hearing on Bach Capital. 1015 Hartsgravel Road, application for site plan, development plan, approval, wetlands permit, tree removal permit, stormwater management and erosion and sediment control for construction of a single-family residence. And gentlemen, welcome back, and ladies.
We have to open the public.
Yes, do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good evening,
Good evening.
acting chair, members of the board and staff, Brad Schwartz from Zarin Steinmetz representing the applicant, joined by our team here in person as well as some folks on the screen this evening. So we're here for public hearing. I know we've been through this presentation several times. I'm happy to do a quick walkthrough if you would like for the benefit of the public. That makes sense?
Sure.
And I'll come up to the screen just one now. This is the site along Hartsgravel Roads. This is the aerial. You see the Chappaqua Swim and Tennis Club here with their access way off the Hartsgravel Road that will become relevant on a slide or two forward. So that's the aerial. For context, Jacqueline. These are some photos of the existing house. We've been through this. It's an old structure built on the early 1800s, very close to Hartsgravel Road, dilapidated condition, an eyesore in the community. So the proposal is to tear down this old existing structure and replace it with a new single-family residence. Again, just a couple of feet from Hartsgravel. So as we zoom out, this is just a constraints map showing that the entire site, as we've been through, is encumbered by DEC and town regulated wetlands and wetland buffer. The green are the wetlands, the beige is the buffer. The only area of the site that's not encumbered is this yellow strip over here. So it is a challenging site. We've been at this for almost 2 years. We think we've come up with a concept that works for the property. We have received DEC wetland approval, as we mentioned last meeting. Next slide. So this was the site plan that we presented at the last meeting. It shows the overall layout. Here's the new structure, the new house, 3-bedroom. So it's a modest size with septic, stormwater here, rain garden. Actually, the driveway is here. And I point out this purple line was a disturbance limit line that we had shown last meeting. The board had asked that we modify the disturbance limit line to pull it back to include the potential, if DOH was to require the construction of the secondary expansion septic area. So now the plan as we submitted it shows both the disturbance limit line that we hope is what actually occurs, but just in case the secondary field is required, this line is now shown as well. Again, just a zoomed in version of the project. I should mention access is off the Chappaqua Swim and Tennis right of way. I have submitted to the board's council and staff the draft of the easement that we worked out with the swim club. So the easement is final in draft form. It will get executed and recorded subsequent to all approvals. And if you remember, the easement is not for ingress and egress. That already exists in an old 1950s deed. This easement is for the construction of this water line to service the new home. Rather than having the water line cross the wetlands, we decided to put in a line that would come out the right of way and tie into the main on Hartsgravel, and so we now have that agreement with the swim club. Next slide. This is the wetland mitigation plan that Stephen Coleman has prepared. He's on camera, on Zoom. He's described this at length. This is suffice to say, plenty of mitigation to offset the impacts of the disturbance of the property. And Steve can address any questions on wetland mitigation. And I believe, is there another slide or are we done? So we have an architectural too of the proposed house. So pretty innovative, cool, modern design that we think fits in the landscape. Again, modest in size for certainly a home in Newcastle. We received the comment memos and no major issues that we had flagged. And so we would ask the board tonight to make a subject to public comment to close the public hearing and authorize a resolution for December.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we proceed, Dennis, I know you had some comments in your memo. Do you want to walk through them?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Temporary Chairman. So my first comment is a continuation, I guess just regarding getting the numbers, which I believe are relatively tight at this point, and maybe the discrepancy could have been explained. And again, the numbers that I'm referring to is, what appears on the plan in terms of the square footage of disturbance, and what ultimately appears on the seeker form in terms of the acreage to be physically disturbed, so that it's clear at the end of the day, it's not just new development, but any regrading, even if that turns out to be green space at the end of the day, that all is a change to the it's a physical confirmation change to the landform. That's the verbiage from the ecological communities in New York State. I don't want to plagiarize. So again, I probably should preface by saying that I did make mention in my memo under one section, but any of these items I would be okay with if the board was so inclined to make them conditions of resolution, that we could work those out sort of during the process. It doesn't necessarily have to be heard again by the board if they so agree. So that was just my first comment, with respect to the numbers. Again, this was from a prior memo, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in our department that is just going to want to see this cut and fill analysis just to make sure that all the material that they're going to have to deal with on site when the ground is broken and construction starts, that they indeed can handle and accommodate that as they show that on the plan. I had discussions with the applicant there, which is fine, not choosing to go back out to the site to do another tree inventory, because I think if anybody who drives by the site, you see a couple of trees that have uprooted horizontal, and I know that this survey is greater than a year old. So if the applicant at the time of, I'll say closer to receiving a building permit, if they want to reevaluate the trees, and indeed the number of trees that were potentially going to be removed or impacted from the project when it was designed years prior, if that is indeed less, I'm comfortable with, and if the board is comfortable with, that we can make that a condition of resolution, that it would reduce at, which I'll get to later in the memo, what would be a contribution to the tree bank fund at this point, in terms of defining tree replacement, defining wetlands mitigation, and not conflating the two or receiving double credit. So that was just a comment with respect to the application. As far as the tree replacement, so I have in front of me, Steve's plan that I looked at and, considered trees that to me are certainly trees that you deserve credit for planting as replacement trees, but, because of either where they're located or what their function is going to be, they don't really meet the definition of wetland mitigation, so I'm comfortable in counting those trees towards tree replacement requirements. Of course,
but not wetland, not mitigation, just
correct.
okay.
Yes, and I tried to describe them. I think the simplest way to do it would be, when you look on the plan, there are trees that are obviously, either A, in the front yard, B, in between this property and the adjacent property that has a structure right up to the property line, and it's going to serve as screening. C would be, right at sort of where probably the limit of disturbance edges would be, so you're just putting trees back at that point, in semi-disturbed conditions and conditions that are going to be subject to repeated disturbance from landscape maintenance, et cetera. So those I was comfortable with saying those could be tree replacement, even though they're in the buffer. I wouldn't accept that as a definition of wetlands mitigation if that was all an applicant was looking to do. So the problem came in a little bit with respect to, I couldn't count all those trees, because of course 121-6 has, once you exceed 10 replacement trees, there's the requirements of you need 3 different tree genera, you can't have more than 33%. So in doing all of that, tree calculus, what we ended up with was a balance of 16 replacement trees that, if the board was inclined, could be met through the contribution to the tree bank fund, and that would total $4,400 based on current fee schedule. And again, based on the prior paragraph of the memo, that number potentially could be reduced if the trees indeed are horizontal or
Gotcha.
on the way to being horizontal if it wasn't for an adjacent tree holding it up.
But worst case scenario, it's 4,400.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other consideration with respect to, I guess, what we did ultimately define as mitigation, I kind of tried to divide it into 2 categories, because in essence they're doing 2 forms of mitigation in my opinion. So where we stopped counting trees and definitely started crediting for wetland mitigation is where the DEC wetland ends, and as you approach to where the house is proposed, it is more of an open emergent area, kind of transitioning out of the hardwood swamp of Turner Swamp Sanctuary. So to supplement that area, not dominate it, but supplement it with woody plantings, I think is a rise of functionality to that system. And then of course there is what is really true restoration. You have as Brad mentioned, you have a house that's been there for however long, so you have that house and all the other associated development with that really the natural ground surface hasn't seen the light of day in 100 years. So when all of that is removed and you're going to replant the area, you're restoring it to something that obviously along the water course, certainly in the buffer, would be beneficial to the system. So that, and I'm saying that not only for the benefit of the applicant, but this is what I'm going to be going forward, because other applications, I feel, are going to try to advance, certain proposals, because this, as I know Chairman Kirkwood mentioned, this was kind of like a unique application. So I just want to make it clear so that if other applicants come in, that this is sort of how I would view things and look to advance this, regardless of whether there was development or not development on a site that involved wetlands. And then just the final comments just had to do with certain notes and comments on the plan, which again, I would be comfortable with making condition of resolution. And that basically summarizes my comments and approach, I'll say, moving forward.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Is Bob with us?
You should be.
Bob, you up there?
Bob is having problems getting onto his computer. It's delayed and it's updating. So he said that his comments are in his memo. If they have any questions, that they should call him.
Okay.
And if my memory serves me correctly, many of his comments can be incorporated into a resolution
I think
as
so.
conditions.
And most of his comments dealt with the structural supports for that masonry wall.
Correct.
Okay. Okay then.
Correct. He apologizes, but his computer is not working right now.
Tell him he has to be here next time then. Okay, questions from the board?
No, I'm okay.
Yep, no, I'm good too.
Okay.
Sir, if I can, just one other quick thing to point out.
Yes.
I think it was like a week ago tonight, we were here before the zoning board and we secured 4 variances for the project as well, 3 front yard variances and a section 288 variance. So I just wanted to mention that for the board's.
Thank you. So I have one question.
Brad, that was last week you were there?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not finishing with them until next month, correct?
So Sabrina, the zoning board granted the variances subject to planning board and DOH approval.
Right, but you haven't seen the minutes yet to reflect the dimensioning on their variances?
Correct.
Okay.
And Brad, I got one clarification on your memo at the top of page 2. I think you said it. So the water line easement you guys have now,
It's not signed, but we have a draft that's been agreed upon, so that
By
all
the
the
parties.
essential terms are there.
Okay.
I sent it to Mr. Lovelace, the club's attorney is copied on it, so that way it's clear that we're in agreement. And post-approval, the parties would sign, execute, and record it.
So it appears to me that we've received everything that we've asked for. There are comments here from Bob and Dennis, and Sabrina, you had no other comments, correct?
Correct.
So if everybody feels comfortable with taking all these comments and having it in the resolution, I think it's time now we close the public hearing? Oh, wait,
I would continue the public hearing just to keep it open
okay.
and maybe direct a resolution to be prepared.
Well, I maybe, do I ask questions of the public if anybody here wants to speak?
Yes, you do. Yes, you
Okay.
do.
Then I'm going to open the floor up from anybody in the public that would like to come talk. Please come up, give us your name and address. Thank you.
Greetings, I'm Victoria Elzapidi, I live at 65 Seven Bridges Road, and I actually didn't attend tonight for purposes of commenting, but I'm just curious, I'm actually the chair of the Conservation Board, and, it's interesting to kind of be developed work, doing this house right near the Turner Swamp. And so it's a very environmentally sensitive area, obviously, so a couple of things crossed my mind, I know on the Conservation Board, we're starting to look at glass that's bird friendly. So I haven't really seen at all the plan. Because it is such a, there's so many birds that live there and kind of are used to that space not being active. So I'm just curious, are there any large windows there, and are you thinking about making it bird friendly glass so that you have less birds crashing?
There is glass.
There is glass.
There is glass there, and there is it is extensive across the building. But that's something we'll have to look into with the architect in terms of what we can utilize to make it bird friendly.
If you would, that would be fantastic. I mean, more and more
Can ask about that.
municipalities are thinking along those lines, and we're very
Folks,
fortunate.
can I remind you to speak into the microphone?
Yes, sorry,
So
Sabrina.
that, that's okay.
I was just saying that more and more municipalities are being sensitive to glass, and there's so many birds that die striking glass, especially during migration. We're so fortunate here in Newcastle to have such a wonderful biodiverse environment. It's ethically, it's ethically more responsible to really think carefully about what kind of glass we're using, especially on these beautiful homes that have, these expansive pieces of glass. So if you could look into that, that would be great. There are a lot of creative, innovative approaches now where you can't even really see that glass is made so that the birds can see and not crash, and the people can't see, so it doesn't disturb their experience of the beauty of the looking out the windows. So thank you for that. And then also, I'm just curious, because it's a space that hasn't been utilized for such a long time, has there been an environmental assessment of what kind of wildlife is using the area? I know Dennis was talking about the disturbance, and obviously that's part and parcel of any new building that you're doing. But is there anything sensitive? Are there box turtles that live nearby? In other words, I'm sure you filled out the EAF. And is it again, because it's so close to the swamp, I'm just thinking you may have wildlife that's really utilizing it more than they would a house that's been, actively inhabited. So I'm just curious, any interesting insights into that and ways that you're kind of being sensitive to when the building is going to be, I'm sure you're sensitive to, if there's box turtles living there, or amphibians and reptiles that have breeding season, tearing down the structure and rebuilding so that you don't interfere with the breeding cycles and nesting cycles. So I'm just wondering if you've thought about that. If that's been taken into consideration.
I have a question on the glass piece.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, their designs had these deep overhangs, and I wonder if that is actually a good thing. I mean, because the glass is sort of inside and inset. I'm just wondering how that, I'm just curious to hear your opinion about that and how that works.
Yeah, again, I'm trying to visualize it. A lot of birds actually use, certain structures like that and nest. It depends if it becomes a visual cue that triggers the bird to realize that there's something there, as opposed to when you just have the flat glass with no indicators, so that they just see that they think they're flying into the forest. So it's possible that the structures you're talking about may clue them into the fact that it is a building and that there's space there. I'd have to really look at it. It's a great question. Any other insights into, I mean, I don't know if you're interested in responding to that, I'm hoping that it's all on the radar, that what I'm bringing up.
So thank you for putting it on the radar. We will certainly confer with the project architect about the glass, and as far as the site habitat, Steve Coleman is on our team. Steve, if you want to address it tonight, you certainly can, but I remember the EAF mapper did not turn up any sensitive or endangered species on the property. I should also mention, we were at the ERB last year, got a favorable report from the ERB. They were also most concerned about the construction means and method for taking down the home and protecting that wetland area, so that we're gonna comply with all of the ERB's conditions of its approval.
And I don't know if the glass issue may come up with the architectural
It's
review
an
board.
ARB issue.
Yeah.
So that might be another opportunity to raise that point.
And not to do your job, but you also got a New York State DEC freshwater wetlands permit.
We did.
So you may wanna review, I don't recall any conditions in that permit that gave you restrictions.
There were none.
Okay. So that's part and parcel the answer, at least from the state's perspective.
Correct. Thank you, Dennis.
Sure. You can bill me.
Are you finished, Brad?
Yes.
We have one more question from the
Just
audience.
to follow up on your suggestion about the architectural review board, do you have any sense of when that meeting is? Is it on the calendar yet?
Victoria, I hate to tell you, please come up to the microphone.
Apologies, Sabrina. I'm just wondering, thank you for mentioning that, Greg, I'm wondering if you know the date of the architectural review board meeting, if it's on the calendar yet?
I do not know that date, and I think ARB is not triggered until you submit a building permit.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's
Correct.
probably a little bit still down the road.
So sequentially, there would still be an opportunity there to kind of think about the type of classes used. Okay, great, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sabrina.
Any other
Sure.
questions from the audience? Okay, so I guess now, do I have a motion to do a resolution for the next meeting? Yes, okay. Do I hear?
Yep.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What meeting are we doing this for?
I assume the next meeting.
The very next meeting?
You're the one drafting.
November 19th.
November 19th.
Great.
Okay.
That works with everybody's calendar? Okay, fabulous.
We're not closed.
We're not closing the public hearing.
No, we're not.
No, okay.
So we'll adjourn it to the November 17th meeting.
Do I have a motion to adjourn it to the next?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Terrific, thank you. Good night.
Okay. Our next item is a request for a time extension from the Chappaqua School District. Do we have anybody here?
Online.
council's
Oh, okay.
Hi, members of the planning board, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, Kristen Motel, a partner with the law firm Petty and Theater on behalf of the school district. We did submit this request for an additional extension of time. There is pending litigation. And I was able to speak with the school district's counsel that's handling that litigation prior to this meeting to get an update. Our office is not handling that litigation. There are cross motions for summary judgment right now pending with the court, and a decision is expected within the next 30 days. So, you know, until that time, there isn't any action that the school district can take. But there should be resolution coming in the litigation.
So in the next 30 days, we'll have answers, and then you guys can proceed with the process again?
They'll have a
Well, that
decision on
depends
the
on the
summary,
outcome.
yeah, right. They'll have a decision on the summary judgment motion
And that's gonna decide Route A or Route B,
or Route C.
or Route C.
Right,
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Do I just go on to a vote,
I mean, yeah, you can,
right?
a motion to grant the extension.
Okay, do I have a motion to grant the extension?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Is that okay?
Thank
Okay,
you.
you got your thank you.
Have a good evening.
You as well.
Okay. Next item, we've got some meeting minutes to go through. And Felicia, I read through the minutes. I had nothing that was significant,
Okay.
except for the fact that we did have a very, very short meeting. Anything?
Since I'm absent, can I don't know if you.
Since you're absent,
You can vote on it,
you
actually.
can
I
vote,
can?
but
Okay.
it's hard for you to make revisions.
Yeah, okay.
Stuart?
Yeah, I have no revisions, so
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
yes, motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. And our last item is we have a new schedule for the rest of this year and next year. If you see anything that pops up, like we missed a holiday, or you know that there's a school break and no one's gonna be around, please speak up now. I have no idea really what's going on.
Alicia did an outstanding job trying to accommodate all of that.
I think so. Is this for us to adopt or just to?
Yeah, we adopt.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt the schedule for 2025?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, we have covered all of our items. I guess the last thing is a motion to close the meeting.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.